Hello and welcome to Esther's Gardening Adventures. I'm Esther. So tomorrow we're supposed to have sort of our first frost of the season. What I am going to be doing today is I'm going to be planting out my, there's Lido at the shed. I'm going to be planting out my spring bulbs. So for my spring bulbs, I have some bearded iris I got from Home Depot. I think it's 3 in here, and I'm going to put this up front with my bearded iris plants, or with my other iris plants. I have some leftover slim daffodils from last year that I didn't plant up. In my backyard, in the summer, it's part to full shade. But in the spring, when the trees don't have their leaves yet, it's actually part to full sun. So I can grow, and in fact, when we moved in here, there were daffodils that were still growing in the backyard from somebody had planted before. So obviously they can grow here and survive over the years. So I'm going to be planting spring bulbs back here, and we'll see how they do. I got 2 bags, so 12 each, of red and white tulips, as well as another bag of daffodils, although I think these will some of these have rotted. I think they might have gotten moist, so it's probably not the full bag I'll be able to have, but there's 45 in the bag. So there's plenty to go around. So let me show you where I'm going to be putting them, and we'll get started on it today. The first place I'm going to plant up is this bed here. This is one of my original square foot 4x4 beds that I did as part of my, when I first started gardening 3 years ago. My first step was to lay out all the bulbs for the daffodils. I have a particular soft spot in my heart for daffodils in particular, and for tulips both, because when I was a child in the DC area around what's called the Tidal Basin, which is an area that's where there's a bunch of cherry blossom trees and little gardens in Washington DC that are around the Jefferson Memorial, and there's a lot of little garden beds tucked in here and there. And my parents and I used to, on Saturdays when I was a child, go down in the spring and go look and tour the gardens, which were just full of daffodils and tulip bulbs of all colors, as well as pansies and all kinds of other flowers. And I just really loved doing that. And we would take, I'll see if I can find a photo to put in here, but we would take photos with me sitting in the tulips, or me sitting in the daffodils, or me with my grandma. I have one of my favorite photos with my father's mother, my paternal grandma, and me sitting in a field, in a patch of tulips. So for me, it has a lot of nostalgia attached to it. So I get a particular set of joy, I would say, in the spring when I see daffodils and tulips. Stay upright, my friend. Now, before I get too much further, before I plant my inside row of the daffodils, I want to lay out where I'm going to put the tulips, because otherwise I will forget where I actually did the daffodils. And then they'll probably overlap and it'll just be a hot mess. The good news is that the spacing for tulips is a little bit smaller. I should put back on my gloves. I think you're really not supposed to handle them without gloves on. Those things that you can get irritated skin when planting. I remember hearing that once. I'll have to double check that. All right, so these are the red, and I want to do them like every other, maybe, or maybe I'll do 1 row of each. Let's see, let's think this through. The good news is they definitely do look a little different than daffodil bulbs. They're a little, oh yeah, I was going to space them between each other, wasn't I? So, there we go. All right. Now, which one's it? Okay, this was this one. Oh, crap. I've gotten them all mixed up. Oh, crap. Well, theoretically, this will be done. Maybe I'll just take it from the bag. This is the problem with having such a short attention span. Well, either way, we'll have red and white interspersed-ish. We might have a whole row of red or a whole row of white here. I think I'm going to do 4 per row. What are you doing? What are you doing? That's not your spot. You good girl. And then over here, this is another bed that I made last year. This is my 9 bark. Let me see what it says on the label. This is why I like labels. Yeah, this is my 9 bark seedling. This is a bush native variety to Maryland Zone 7A. So that's one, and then over there is, and then that one that's sort of the leaves are turning yellow, that is one of 2 of the witch hazel plants, which witch hazel actually, the non-Asian version, is actually native to Maryland. So I want to plant some daffodils and possibly, if I have any tulip bulbs left, along the edge of this. And I've cleared this out. This was also another thing that kind of got overwhelmed and underkept this year that I really want to have as a beautiful part of the garden next year. All right, so I have now planted all the bulbs. And by the way, I ended up having to, I'll show you, I ended up having to basically dig up the soil on the side bed because it was just too hard. And I wanted to amend it. And plus I'm also planning on scattering some seeds, which I'm going to talk about in a minute here, on this bed. But this is how it looks at the moment. I've started gathering up some leaves. I'm leaving the leaves on the ground in my yard, but I do clear the driveway and sidewalks because wet leaves, especially when it starts snowing or raining, can be slippery and dangerous. So I'm collecting those leaves in a barrel and I'm going to use it to spread across both of my beds here. But before I do that, I have something I want to do. So if you follow my channel, you know that I winter sow most of my seeds, which is basically I put my seeds, I grow my seeds in milk jugs over the winter outside instead of indoors under grow lights. And I have a whole series on winter sowing. Part of what I grow when I do that is my native plants that need cold stratification, meaning they need a certain number of days of cold before they will germinate, before they will allow themselves genetically to sprout. So I have successfully winter sown the vast majority of the native plants, not counting the bushes and trees that I have in my yard today. But what's different is I also have, on occasion, taken some native plants and just scattered the seeds in the fall, which is another thing you can do. And so this year, in addition to winter sowing my plants, I also am going to try scattering some of the seeds in the ground here in the fall and see how they do. Because I'm just curious about the ease of working with these kinds of seeds, right? So first up, this is a Mid-Atlantic native perennial seed pack I got. You can kind of see, if you look real close, you can kind of see some, I see some milkweed seeds. That might be some asters. I'm not quite sure what all's in it. I got it in a seed swap. Last winter. And so I'm going to take this pouch and I'm going to spread these seeds over this area before I put the leaves back down. I'm going to press them down, the seeds down a little bit too maybe. Or maybe I'll just kind of leave them there. So let's see how they do. And the nice thing about native plants and flowers is even if they normally require full sun to do their best, they can often do okay in part shade. So that's also part of this experiment, is planting these seeds in the part shade area. I've actually been keeping a close eye on this. It's these milkweed pods, and you can see they're starting to split finally, which is great because it's gonna, oh, look, it's already coming out. Hold together, my friends. Hold together. This is my first time saving milkweed seeds, so I am so thrilled. Eee! Okay, I'm gonna try a strategy that I saw on another channel. I'll link to her video because she did a really great test of the best way to separate the seeds. And one of them was to hold the pod together but pull out the fluff, and that seems to be working. Because this stuff will float, but there's very few seeds attached to it. Let's see how many I can get out without the seeds. Oh, look at that nice fluff there. My dog doesn't like my exclamation. This is a great way to harvest the seeds. Look at that. We've got almost all of the fluff out. Look at that. Oops, there goes one in the wind. Well, that's all right. Couple more. Look at that. Man, I was able to save just about all the seeds with very little work. That is awesome. That's exciting. Look at all those seeds. All right, I'm gonna take them in and put them on a towel to make sure they dry fully before I put them in an envelope. So I ended up realizing that I recorded the video without saying goodbye. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please hit the like button if you did. Make sure you've subscribed if you haven't already, and that your alarm is set so you get alerts when I post new content. And I hope to see you again soon. Bye.